fire you up like that. Try it again.
Thank you very much for participating in that with me. Just a brief story around that. I've got a younger brother. Is anybody familiar with the show Daktari from the 60s? We got a few. I love it. So my brother and I would get into we'd have some very physical altercations over whether he got to watch Daktari or I got to watch The Price is Right. So good memories, but anyways. So certainly, as Steve has mentioned, I've got 15 years plus in the consumer finance industry, whether it be banking, lending, commercial. Now I'm at Merrill Lynch. So I can talk for hours, like I do every day, about your personal finance, commonly accepted financial principles that promote wealth, right? But the one central theme here at Ablaze, okay, is the new evangelization, right? So I want to focus here and really have a dialogue that'll help us work towards an internal inheritance and not necessarily earthly treasure. All right, so last week, Monsignor Churchwell stated that it is the love of money that is promoting evil, right? Not necessarily money itself. So I want to talk more about how we can prevent money from hurting our relationships and how we can use it as a tool to promote Christ's selfless love, first and foremost in our home, the domestic church, which is the foundation of the new evangelization, but then also in our communities. Okay? So as far as the domestic church, when in working with folks, I think what I would recommend certainly first and foremost is to invite Christ into your financial life. Okay? And by that, you're inviting love. All right? Once you've got that, then you're in a position where you can make some very intentional decisions. You're going to hear me use that word intentional a lot because I think it's very important anytime you make a decision, especially in your financial life. First and foremost, as we invite Christ in, how do we do that? That's very simple, okay? It's prayer, okay? Start with prayer. So when it comes to money, certainly we've talked here at Ablaze about making specific time for prayer in your life, carving it out, going to your place. Certainly you need to do the same thing with money, okay? So let me give you a little example, right? So I'm at Merrill Lynch. I haven't been there 20 years, okay? I've been there 2, and if anybody knows anything about this industry, I've far from made it yet, okay? So with 5 children, 7 of us in the house, we've got to be very intentional about our grocery shopping, right? So ideally we're at Kroger, we're at Walmart, we're at Publix, wherever the deal is. So I come home from work, right? It's maybe 7:30. I'm already running a little late. Dinner's not quite ready yet. And for the 3rd or 4th night in a row, I see the shopping bags on the grocery table. It's all coming from Publix, which is fine. So I come in the door and I say to my wife, hey, Danielle, this is like the 4th night. Like, what's going on with the grocery shopping? I've got 5 kids. Dinner's not ready yet, and this is how I approach my wife when I walk in the house? She's hangry, if you guys know what that is. She's the hangriest person I know, except for my 5-year-old. But so I could certainly approach her like that. And how do you think that interaction is? What do you think she's been doing all day? Waiting for me to come home and speak to her like that? Probably not. So the thought here is to schedule a conversation like this. When Danielle and I do this, it's usually on a Saturday evening, okay? We certainly would like to start with prayer. That's where we're inviting Christ in. We do have a cocktail. It kind of loosens things up a little bit. And we have our best conversations. Our best conversations, planned in a relaxed environment. It's so open. So certainly want to encourage those conversations be planned, okay, and in a relaxed environment. Reactionary is not good in that situation. I'm blessed that I get to work a lot with folks from Georgia Power in my job, okay? So a lot of these folks are simple folks, been hanging power lines for 40 years, only job they ever had, great folks. I meet these folks for dinner sometimes, and without fail, their hands come across the table to me and say, Pete, is it okay if we pray? I say, yeah, it's awesome. So I do a lot of work over the phone with my clients, so I'm talking to them over the phone. It's different. But as a Catholic man, certainly everybody I work with, my number one intention is to do what's best for my client. Can't say that for everybody out there. We protect ourselves against those folks, but that's what brought me to do what I do. I felt like I had a calling to protect these folks. And I do that, but when these folks put their hands out across the table and we're holding hands, and the gentleman who's the head of their church, their domestic church, is leading the prayer and calling God to make sure that we do all the right things financially, it just takes me to another level. Again, I operate like that. I take my people's interests first every time. But when they invite Christ in, it is a whole different ballgame. How can you be 100% for your clients and then invite Christ? You can be 120%. So certainly invite prayer into these type of conversations. Next, we're going to invite love, make a decision. All right? So my advice there is to be transparent in debate. Transparency is the backbone of any relationship. Okay? My relationship with my wife, okay? My relationship with my clients at work, transparency is critical. And from what I understand, there's only full transparency in about 20% of marriages. All right? So no secrets, no sneaking, no surprises. I don't like surprises, okay? Especially when it comes to finance. Think I like my clients calling me when they're surprised? It hurts. I'm embarrassed. But more importantly, I'm really talking about your relationships with the folks in your life. Okay? I'm not saying you have to open up your checkbook to your parents or well, if you're older, excuse me. I'm not telling you your sister needs to know what you're doing, but certainly in your domestic church, I believe it needs to be an open book. Have some dialogue around what that communication structure looks like. Okay, what do you want to know? I've got this account, you've got that account. How's that work? Certainly openness is the best. My wife does have an account that is for food. It's not her account, and I give her money. Okay? It's our account. She just keeps a closer eye on it. Our core account, we pay our bills out of. Maybe sometimes we call it my account, but it ain't my account. It's our account. She's got full transparency into it. I've got full transparency in what she's doing. No secrets, no surprises. Maybe there's a surprise once in a while, but for the most part, because there's transparency, there's trust. So it's not a surprise that I'm concerned about or I'm not worried about. I'm concerned. I'll come ask her, but I'm not worried about it. And it's because of the transparency that's there. In making the decision, I would also say be practical, but invite emotion and accept emotion. So right in the domestic church, the husband's the head, the wife is the heart. There's no distinction between the two, and I would not raise up either one ahead of the other. I tell my clients or folks I first meet, they want to start talking about stocks and bonds. I don't want to talk about that. The first 80% of the conversations I have with the folks I work with, it's about you and your family and what's important to you. What are your goals? Who do you love? Tell me about your kid. You have kids? You have a mother that you're taking care of? We have to know all that. So I'll be talking to a gentleman on the phone and I'll say, okay, listen, next step is for us to have maybe it's an hour conversation. I've got colleagues that say, I think I could do that in 30 minutes. I'm like, yeah, good luck. Great. It's an hour conversation. Oh, my wife's not interested in this. I go, you're wrong. Well, first of all, I say it differently to them, of course, but you don't understand the conversation we're about to have. This isn't about really money right now. The first 25 minutes are about you and who you are. Okay? So that's why I'm saying you've got to have the heart, okay, with the head. So there is a place in finance for emotion. Merrill Lynch does research on behavioral finance, and I've got a slide I could have possibly pulled up here today that basically shows you why you need to take emotion out of financial decisions. When you're buying stocks and bonds, sure, right? Because stock market goes up, as investors, we get excited. Oh, yeah, look, let's get involved. You start pulling into your pocket, okay? Stock market goes down, we panic. We get nervous, we take our money out. That's the opposite of what we should be doing. That's where our emotions, certainly we can ask them to step aside. Here's another example. I did a lot of, let's call it lending or debt management for folks early on in my career, and I met some great, great people that had bad things happen to them. So guess what? I think Monsignor talked about not judging folks for how they manage their money. I've seen it. I've seen great people, great people have some problems with that stuff. Point is here, I've helped people consolidate credit card debt. And in consolidating that credit card debt, maybe we couldn't capture it all. There's $30,000. We can pay off 20 with this loan facility. We still got another 10 grand. Where do you want to start? Well, I could certainly go, well, this one has the highest interest rate. It's practical to start there. And I've had people say, Pete, you know what? I appreciate that. But you see this Capital One card? This thing keeps me awake at night. And I go, let's pay it off. So what are we saving? A couple percentage points? My point is if you're hitting your goals financially, for the most part, it is okay to sacrifice some efficiency, okay, for peace of mind. All right? Another piece on practicality. So my poor wife. So I'm driving home from work. Again, I'm probably late. She's probably hangry. And she says to me, Pete, the girls are eating pizza tonight. And she doesn't say, okay, because of the transparency we have. She tells me that, and I say, okay. So again, is it practical? No. But listen, 5 kids, I'm coming home at 7:30 down 85. I mean, I should have been home earlier. There's nothing going on there. You know, I just got to say, yes, ma'am. I would also say, too, from time to time, she'll call and she'll say, we're having pizza, or she'll say, the girls are having pizza. So I hear the girls are having pizza. What I'm hearing is she has not eaten yet. She's waiting for me. And I take that as a sign that I'm going to stop and get her something special. I will stop at Carrabba's. We will split usually one of the meals and get an extra soup. And it works out fine because it's usually kind of late by then. But again, is it practical? Can you build it into your budget? Sure. But man, what a big difference that is. I could certainly take that another way and get in her ear a little bit about why does she, what's up with the grocery shopping, Danielle? I've done it. I'm not saying, trust me, I'm not saying I don't do that. I'm weak and a sinner like everybody in the room, so it certainly happens. So now let's talk about actually making some type of financial decision. All right, so you sit down, you make out time, you come up with a practical idea, you invite emotion in, you invite some prayer, you make the decision. What I would say is have realistic expectations. All right, so my cousin Tony, he's a younger gentleman, he comes to me, I'm his confirmation sponsor, we still have a very tight relationship, and he says to me, Pete, I want to be a teacher and I want to coach football. I say, Tony, that's great. You know how happy you'll be? You will be so happy. But make sure you understand and that whoever you marry understands you'll have a nice pension, but you're going to drive an old beat-up pickup truck. It's not going to be flashy, but you will be so, so happy. My wife and I have 5 children. That is an intentional decision. Okay, Father Jack will tell you, listen, I'm not saying you need to have 10 kids, right? But it's certainly an intentional decision. I understand that I may never fully retire. I'm okay with that. My wife understands that we're not going to go on lavish vacations. We're okay with that. My girls are getting older now, so they'll say, I do like cars. So I'm like, ooh, look at that car. That's nice. Look, did you hear that engine? You know, it's an M3 going by or something. And they'll say, Daddy, why don't you have one? And I say, you are my M3. And I've got a garage full of them. I guess I hear this song in church all the time, and we all sing it, but many are the blessings he bears for those who trust in his ways. It means a lot to me. I remember hearing it on the guitar in church when I was 4 years old, and still today here. Let's talk about our community and spreading love in the community. Again, coming back to the new evangelization. First thing we need to do is accept Christ and accept his love. Father Kilcawley came and talked to the Knights last week, had a great talk with us, and he talked about Christ, how before he went out and did something significant, and it's Mark 1:11, right after he got baptized, before he came out to the people and to spread the message, he said, "This is my son with whom I am well pleased." And again in the Garden of Gethsemane, before he put himself on the cross. So you too have to accept Christ before you head out and understand that he loves you, regardless of the sins that you've committed in the past. I think the best way to approach that is confession, weekly mass, and Holy Communion. Holy Communion's a big deal. I just think, maybe I'm looking at it differently, but I just feel like are we not receiving Christ? I mean, how could you go out on Monday morning and tackle this thing, the world, without that? So certainly make sure we're accepting Christ and using the tools here in the Catholic Church. But charity in the community, just be charitable and spread love. Father Jack told us a few months ago, treat all you meet as the mystery of God revealed. Everybody's so individual here. You have got to get to know people. One thing that works for me is I love talking to homeless people on the bridge over 85 at North Druid Hills. Okay? So let me just put this to you in 2 ways, right? You're with a colleague or you're with one of your children, and it's a nice summer day, your windows are down, you're pulling up, and you see them coming. They're coming down. You roll up your windows and you turn and you say, listen, I don't give these guys money. I don't know what they spend it on. I saw something in the news the other day where they make like $200 a day doing this. I don't give them any money. Really, Christian. And then you turn, you go, oh, so by the way, you want to come to church with me next week? Like, I don't know where you go to church, but I'm not coming to Ablaze because I don't understand what that message is. You know, you want your children to see that? Or what you can do is, it's a cold winter day. You're pulling up to the bridge. You see them coming. They roll down the windows. You bring them over and say, hey, buddy, what's going on? What are you doing? I have the best conversations with these people, and I feel bad because they could get more money. But I was telling Paige this the other day, I carry cash in my pocket now where I never had before because I want to take advantage of those opportunities. All right? We do a great job tithing in this church. This building's beautiful. I'm glad to raise my family in this building. Thank you. But certainly, take the opportunity to get to know people. Use your money to spread God's message. You do that in front of a colleague, they'll say, hey, where do you go to church? funny you ask. Why don't you come to Ablaze next week? I go to a Catholic church. You're living the example and not really talking about it. So another, and we've heard this before, but truly I tell you, whatever you did for the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you've done for me. Pay attention to that blue envelope that comes out, okay, for St. Vincent de Paul. That's an easy way to do it. Look for those folks on the bridge. In closing, really all I would say is give much, expect less, be graceful, and by that you evangelize. Thank you.